too.
And welcome on in. It is a, ugly Monday morning or Monday afternoon here on Claibs Online. It's lunch with Claibs and Joe. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. And as you can see with the cars behind us, we are out here.
Is?
Yeah, they had to move that one up a little bit. You
don't want to scratch that one.
No. Well, you could afford that to walk away with that. No. I don't think I can.
I have a rule about cars. Can't have a car that's not big enough to put my groceries, golf clubs, and girlfriend in all at the same time.
What are you driving down at when you're driving down in spring training? What do you? I
have options. I've got a convertible Thunderbird and a Jaguar.
Well, pardon me.
Yeah.
You're going to be down there in 2 weeks. Actually about 10 days.
I guess I should start packing.
Yeah, probably.
Put together a pack list.
So you'll be down there in about 10 days from now. So we are at Mungenast St. Acura today. 13720 Manchester Road is where we are today. And next week we will be at Mungenast Alton Toyota at 850 Homer Adams Parkway in Alton, Illinois. And then you are off to Florida as I guess I wait for MLB to get their stuff together and figure out.
Let me know when that happens.
I'm waiting on you to let me know when that happens.
You're in the business. I've never seen an organization that is out of answers. I mean, it's not like this pandemic just came up. It's not like you just went through it. We're less than 3 weeks away, and we have no idea about how to cover it. We don't know who's going to be able to go to the ballpark. We don't know if fans are going to be in the ballpark. We don't know if we're going to have a designated hitter. There's so many things we don't know about. And this solely falls in the lap of Major League Baseball. And how we can be this long into the season as far as understanding how things work is a mystery to me. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating for a lot of people.
We'll get into more of the 2021 baseball stuff here probably towards the end of the show. But I do want to start off talking about what happened on Friday, and that was the passing of Hank Aaron at the age of 86. Had been in poor health for a while, and 2021 takes another Hall of Famer. That is, I believe 10 Hall of Famers that have been lost in the last 8 to 10 months.
Yeah, it's incredible. I knew him reasonably well. I mean, I knew him since I was in college, and not a nicer person, not a more graceful person. A person that endured so much to play this game of baseball on and off the field, but he was always a classy guy, took care of a lot of guys, great sense of humor. That's something that we'll probably hear more of here in the future about the sense of humor and how he could have fun with guys, especially making sure young guys were comfortable. One guy he took really good care of was Dusty Baker, and I know it really hurt Dusty to lose his best friend, but a wonderful person, but an incredible player. I believe it was Tim Kirchin who said the other day that when he retired, he had the record for owning the most records in Major League Baseball. There's a couple of records that will never be broken. One is the RBIs, 2397. And
why do you think that'll never be broken?
Because nobody will play that long. And RBIs aren't as plentiful as they used to be. I mean, guy has 110 RBIs now. They think, oh, man, he's terrific. Doesn't happen that way anymore. I just don't think guys play as long and don't excel for as long of a period of time. So I don't think that'll ever be broken. Total bases, never be broken. And it just shows you what a productive player he was. And this is about maybe a month ago when we were talking about Costas. And I asked him about why don't people revere Henry Aaron more, because we always hear about Mays and Mantle, Ruth, and very good players. But Henry Aaron, you look across the board, third most hits of all time, 755, really 756. His first home run he ever hit was at the old Sportsman's Park in St. Louis.
I saw Derek Gould teasing this that Hummel was
box. He stepped out of batter's box and they called him out. That was his first home run that they called back.
Will he get more added on now that the Major League Baseball came out recently saying that some of the Negro League stats will be added in?
I think that would be the case.
I think it's not much. It's only a handful of home runs that'll be added on, but
he's still better than the guy who claims he's a home run.
Right. It's not going to officially put him past Barry Bonds, but it'll add on to that number.
Here's the other thing about him. He used to bat cross-handed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about that. You know, when you were a little league, they say you can break your wrist that way. Well, he had the strongest wrist, quick wrist. And he once told me that, I said, what do you think about these guys throwing these 100-mile-an-hour fastballs? That's not the problem. He said, because most guys sit on the fastball. He sat on the breaking ball. Nobody sits on breaking balls. They think they do, but nobody sits and looks for the breaking ball, which is what he also talked about, how he went through his batting practice. You know, guys are trying to hit it up in the eighth deck, pulling everything, right center field, right field. And that's why he had all those RBIs. So he has, as Mike Shannon would call, the Roger Maris RBIs. So Maris would say, you can have 100 RBIs in a season, but about 20 to 30 of them will be just hitting it to the second baseman with a runner on third.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron was known for that, you know. I mean, so you had to play him straight up because he'd go the other way just to drive in that run. An incredible batsman, 305 average, and was an exceptional field. Never threw the wrong base. But because he played left field instead of center field, he didn't have the flair that you would see in a left fielder compared to center field. But just an incredible player. He did a lot for the game, man. He was one of the great ambassadors of the game too. So we're going to miss him for sure.
Is it possible, as you mentioned, all the records he ended with, still holding some of those today? Is it possible that he could be seen as underrated?
Underrated might not be the word. Not the first name that comes to mind.
Right.
You know, I mean, when you say, well, what about him? Oh, yeah. How could I forget? They always say, how could I forget him? Well, you just did because you didn't think of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it had a lot to do with, as I said, being a left fielder, being a little softer spoken, not in a big market. Remember, Mays played in New York before they went to the Giants. And Ruth obviously played in New York. I mean, the high wire acts were all in bigger markets. And, you know, another guy who would be in that category would be a guy like Frank Robinson. You know, Frank Robinson was as good of a 5-2 player as ever played. Only guy to win the MVP in 2 different leagues. But we don't talk about him in that same vein. And I just think it has a lot to do with position, market size, and your demeanor. You know, Henry Aaron was kind of a soft-spoken guy. You know, he didn't have a lot to say. I mean, he was a good interview and all that,
Mm-hmm.
but he wasn't a guy that was front and center. But anybody who knew him would tell you there's nothing he couldn't do. And I think that's what will make him one of the greats.
86 years old, and as we mentioned, the game has lost so many good players in this past year, and not having the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown last year, there are going to be a lot of empty chairs if they're able to have it coming up this summer, and it's going to be a sight to see.
Well, how about if we have a legitimate opening day at Busch Stadium? I think they should have 2 cars roll out with Gibson and Brock's name on them, and they just would be empty. I just don't think you can forget them, especially in this time of COVID.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they'll come up with something I think that will work. But, it's been rough, man.
Before we move on to football, just want to let people know, hey, I talked about this a little bit last week. I don't know if you overheard when we were at the start of last week's show, but the folks at Ameren, Illinois, one of our sponsors here at Claibs Online, they have a smart energy package that you can go on the website and sign up for. Smart energy kits are available. Go to their website, Ameren, Illinois, smartsavers.com, and you can get a free thermostat, one of those free Nest thermostats that you can control from your phone and hold on to it that way. They also have other kits that they are building on the way. We just got one at our house that has an energy saving power strip along with a few energy saving light bulbs that we connect to the Alexa at home. And not only can you just tell it to turn on and turn off, it's about, I think we've already gone through about 10 different colors. you just name a color and the light bulb turns that color. And having a 7-year-old, we put one in his room.
Oh boy.
And every time I walk into his room, that light bulb's a different color because I think he just gets a color in his mind and he says, Alexa, turn it purple. And it turns purple.
I might get one of those myself.
but they
new method of mood lighting.
Yeah, and yeah, you know what? Hey, the TV lighting, if you put it on orange for that, it's like you're in a movie theater when you turn the lights on to orange. But I'm telling you this though, it was all free that because we signed up for the Smart Savers program. And they mailed us a box of all this stuff to the house, and you can have that. You can do that. And they don't have anything going on right now, but I know I talked to the folks at Ameren, Illinois last week, and they are building a new kit that they are going to be getting ready to send out as well. Ameren, Illinois, SmartSavers.com is the website to find out more information on that and find out what energy saving things you can get for your home as well. So yesterday, AFC NFC Championship game to find out who was going to Super Bowl 55 down in Tampa Bay, Florida. And I had a feeling both games were going to go this way. I was 0 for 2 with my picks, but I did have a feeling that the first game was going to be close and come down to that last possession. I felt, as much as I wanted the Bills to win and I picked the Bills, I really felt that game was going to end up being a blowout, and it was. I don't think there was any doubt.
It got off to such a hokey start.
It really did.
I was like, maybe Kansas City might be in trouble here.
But they flipped the switch so fast. So let's start with that game. Let's start with the AFC Championship game, Buffalo and Kansas City, 9-0. Just right off the bat, the Bills take the lead. And that's so okay. You were covering the Rams during the Greatest Show on Turf days.
Mm-hmm.
What is there give me some differences, some similarities you see between the offenses that you saw on the Greatest Show on Turf and you see with this Kansas City offense, because
the biggest difference,
it just seems like, that game yesterday, they just flipped the field so fast.
Biggest difference is they don't have a Marshall Faulk. The Greatest Show on Turf doesn't have a Kelsey as far as the tight end is concerned. The Rams could establish a running game. The Chiefs have a reasonable running game, but it's not scaring you. I think the Rams offense was more whole. They could play in any weather, any situation because they had multiple options. The Chiefs have shown to be fairly flexible. But they've had a pretty good road to hoe so far where they haven't really been challenged where they run up against a defense that would take a weapon or two away and then they'd have to do something else. And I go back to having a running game, which would not compare to what the Rams would run out there. So I think that's the biggest difference. Rams are a little bit more physical. They could push people around if they needed to. But I'm impressed with the Chiefs' offensive line because they've had a couple of injuries. They lost Tardif to COVID. He opted out because he's
not because of COVID. Yeah, he wanted to go treat people that have it and help out. No injuries. Yeah, with him, but you expect him maybe back next year.
That were nicked up along the way, but they've been able to keep Mahomes clean.
And it looks Eric Fisher.
Mahomes is pretty versatile himself. He moves a lot, so that's a good thing for them.
They haven't come out with the exact report yet, but it does look like Eric Fisher probably won't be available for the Super Bowl. They said Achilles injury, and it looked like that might have been a torn Achilles that he had, so that would be a huge loss for them.
Yeah, you're right. And that's the one thing that Tampa does well. They can rush past pretty well. With Sue and Pierre-Paul.
Well, you saw it in the game. You saw it yesterday. That was, the Packers lost their left tackle at the end in Week 17, and they were able to make it through last week against the Rams without having to, protect that much. But with Donald hurt the way that he was when the Rams and Packers played.
Half of a Donald.
Yeah, right. So you saw with Tampa last night or yesterday afternoon that the offensive line for the Packers was really, really hurting, and that would be Tampa's chance in that game. But I do want to say that the Bills, I think, we see this so often in football where you see a team make it to that AFC or that NFC Championship game and then just so quickly fall off. I think, 3 years ago, Jacksonville was in the AFC Championship game, and now they're the worst team in football. Every year I watch the AFC Championship game, it reminds me that the Jets were in back-to-back AFC Championship games with Mark Sanchez, and they were they were one win away from it with him. But you have to think that Buffalo having the combo of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs will stick around for a while and be contenders in the AFC.
I think, though, here's what comes into play. A, you have to pay Allen at some point. So that's going to cost you. B, what does your offensive line look like?
Mm-hmm.
And because, and I've talked about it countless times, if you don't have those guys up front, I don't care who you are as a quarterback. That's why Brady was getting his brains beat out, because the Patriots didn't invest in legitimate offensive linemen. They were getting a guy from this scrap heap, and a guy was an ex-bartender over here, and this guy was an 8th-round draft. I mean, they were getting them from everywhere, and they never really invested until it was too late. So I look at what Buffalo's going to have to do. So, all right, put some money away for Allen. Diggs is going to want a new deal. We get it. We're going to have to up our level of subs anyway. So I think the reason why a lot of those teams, as you mentioned, like Jacksonville and the Jets, went down in flames, mismanagement of the cap and not planning for what was going to be next. And when you get out of line, it's hard to get back in line.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned the Jets and the Jaguars, and here they are vying for the 1 and 2 spots in the draft again because of those mistakes they made a few years ago.
Yeah, so the Chiefs in from the AFC, we mentioned briefly. Tampa in the NFC as they defeat the Packers, and I think you can make a comparison with both the Packers and the Bills. That one of the things that cost them in the game, maybe to a lesser extent, was not being aggressive in the game. You saw in the first game, Green Bay with 2 minutes and 19 seconds left in the game, they opt to kick a field goal inside the 10-yard line instead of going for it on fourth down.
Let me ask you this, and that's a great point you bring up. But what was worse, opting to kick the field goal or Aaron Rodgers not running for that first down? Because he had a whole quarter of the side of the field staring him in the face. Remember, you had two guys at the goal line that were defenders. You had another guy in the end zone. There was nobody else on that side of the field that could have got there.
I mean, you're talking Aaron Rodgers, not Michael Vick. I think when you see,
he's done that though.
But I think there were pictures out there and there were camera angles out there that I think were deceiving, because I think that there were other camera angles where you see the goal line and you see the two defenders right there, and Aaron Rodgers wasn't beating them to the goal. I think that depending on the angle, Aaron Rodgers wasn't getting there.
I would have taken my chances. I mean, because I would have never gone for it on fourth down. I mean, I would have gone for it on fourth down. But I think that play really put them in a tough spot, because if he doesn't score, you're in a great position, to still have another down to score.
That's my thinking behind it is, if you don't make it there, you still have the 2-minute warning. You still have your 3 timeouts and you have them with their back against the wall. So I don't understand the thinking behind doing that. The same way with Buffalo, you're watching how fast that Chiefs offense was moving. I know it's the end of the half. I know you want some positive momentum. I think you still have to go for it on their end too.
No,
I just think
agree.
There was no stopping them
at
at that point.
You're right. I agree with you for this reason also. You're going to need to score points against Kansas City.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't going to be you're not going to beat Kansas City 12 to 10. All right. That's not going to happen. So you need as many points when you can get them, how you can get them. And if you can stick a dagger in them going in that locker room at the half, who knows how the game may change.
So moving on from this, one of the things that would have been a big storyline next week in Tampa, especially on Monday night at the media night, would have been the assistant coaches. Would have been Eric Bieniemy, would have been Todd Bowles, the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, the defensive coordinator for the Buccaneers, going head to head. Both black coaches, black coordinators. Both guys that should have gotten probably more interviews or more interest than what they did in the coaching. You saw the Eagles go out and sign the offensive coordinator for the Colts.
Did you read Chris Landry's piece on that?
I didn't read
how the
his.
guy didn't even have a suit.
I saw Jameel Hill tweeting about that. And then I also saw today, if you want to continue to talk about his fashion, he showed up, and I know you're a big fashion guy, especially your bespoke mask is sitting right there too. Showed up in a checkered button-down shirt and a checkered jacket.
Yes.
And I wondered, but I saw for people that missed it, he was on vacation when the Eagles called and said they wanted to interview him, and he said, I don't have dress clothes, and they said, no, that's all right, don't worry about it. So the entire Eagles front office also dressed down for their interview to make him feel more comfortable.
Well, they wanted him to have the job. I mean,
but Eric Bieniemy doesn't interview well, right?
Well, that's what they say. and we talked about this last week. I'm a little miffed at the Adam Schefters and some of these other guys who float that rumor out there without any basis on what part does he interview about. When you hear these guys from ESPN and the so-called insiders, they say that. But what does that mean? I mean, is he speaking a different language? Is he at bad breath? I mean, you don't like his cologne. Is he abrasive? Is he ill-prepared? We don't know any of this. And I just think that they're culpable as well in how this whole thing is going on. And then they say, oh, woe is the NFL. How could they do this? Well, they're part of it. They contribute to it. And where we go from here, I don't know. I mean, I think they just have kind of just moved on from it. And I don't know how you fix it. I think the Players Association's got to be more aggressive in how they address this. And this is probably as dysfunctional of a Players Association as I've ever seen. You don't ever count on the NFL's Players Association getting anything done right. So it's a head scratcher, and I don't know how you fix it. And my thing is with Houston now saying that these two guys are candidates, is this just more window dressing? They have another guy in the back, and they can actually say, "Oh, we interviewed them both."
Who is it? Josh McCown that they just put on their interview list too?
I'm trying to remember what team was he on.
Every team.
Yeah. I mean, as far as being a coach.
No teams.
I mean, and I know Damian Woody said something the other day about he has the makings of being a head coach because they play together, and he thinks the world of him. But where is this tree at? Were they just picking guys off a tree with no ring experience?
That's good agents right there, getting them in there for interviews. I guess.
I think it's bullshit.
I did see early thoughts on the Super Bowl matchup. It's Tom Brady against Patrick Mahomes.
All right, time out.
Okay. No, don't. Before you, I'm gonna tell you what you're about to say to me is that they're not going to be on the field at the same time and they're not playing each other. But okay, so I got that out of you. I saved you the words of having to say that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I know that. I worked with Balzer long enough to know that he uses that same speak too.
It is. I mean, I was talking to Frank today on his show, and he's got all these numbers of what Brady is against this coach. Against this quarterback. I'm like, wait a minute.
He has beaten 27 quarterbacks, by the way, in the postseason. He told me that. Yeah.
No, he beat.
We saw the same Twitter account, I guess.
But he beat 27 teams.
That wasn't Hoff doing the research on that number.
But I mean, they're not playing. They're not on the field. What we should be talking about is how many defensive coordinators did he beat? How many defenses did he beat? Because those are the people who have a say-so in the outcome, But I know it's convenient that people like to use that. But continue. I digress.
Oh, I wanted your early thoughts on what to expect in this game. So the first one that comes to my mind is I just think it's so ironic that the first time ever in 55 Super Bowls, this is the first time ever that the host city is going to have their team in there. And it's during a pandemic where there is where there is limited seating at the stadium, so it will not be home field advantage and the people. I don't know what kind of events they're having there either. I have talked to somebody I know that's going down there to work as a volunteer, and she is completely clueless as to what they have planned because they're not having all of the big events like they do every year.
Well, I had a good friend who's one of the major Super Bowl planners, who gets me tickets to events. I never go. And they're not doing anything.
Nothing. I've had a few PR people reach out to me asking if I'd be interested in Zoom interviews with their clients, and I said, sure, send me who you have on that. But it's
different.
It's also in Florida, where, for many parts of Florida, this doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it hasn't since the beginning. So they will still have events, but it's going to be the Tampa area isn't bringing in the money that a normal Super Bowl does.
No. Tickets will be at a premium, though. If
they're so limited. Yeah.
Right. It's different. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have other than a guy sleeping in his own bed. If you play for Tampa, your practice facility is going to be the same. Those sort of things give you a little bit of an advantage. You don't have to get on a plane to go anywhere. That would be an advantage. But the other side of that coin is the whole Kansas City team was here in the Super Bowl last year, so they have a routine.
Right.
This other than Gronk and Brady, and maybe there's another guy who was on a Super Bowl team or somewhere else, Pierre-Paul. They don't have any idea what this is going to be about. But and it's probably to their advantage. There's no mass media day. There probably won't be a curfew because they've already been under the protocol of staying at home anyway.
You're not going to have the celebrities and everybody else coming into town trying to take your time, stuff like that. Yeah.
So, that whole ticket thing used to be, as an agent, I used to have to coordinate tickets for my guys because I would tell them either you have your wife do it or you have your agent do it, because that's the first thing you have to address before anything else gets started. And then you had guys who would buy as many tickets as they could and then sell them for incredible amounts of money. So you don't have
any players throughout the entire NFL do that. So
yeah, I know a guy 1 year that made up like $140,000 on selling tickets. I know another guy who bought a brand new Mercedes, courtesy of buying tickets.
Yeah.
But you don't have to worry about that.
The first one I covered was in Indianapolis, and a guy I know drove from St. Louis to Indianapolis just because he was able to buy tickets as a current player at the time, and he bought them just to turn around and sell them.
Yeah, that's what, and every sport does it. Remember the NCAA had a thing where their coaches were selling tickets. And I remember it cost one coach his job, but it's part of the routine. But my point being, there are going to be less distractions. You're a little bit better prepared. But if you're Kansas City, you got some data on Brady, and you faced him, before. I like Kansas City by a little bit, just by a little bit. I think they're more whole. But here's the question. And you brought it up earlier. We don't know what the injury report looks
You don't
like.
know that. Yeah. They also, the defensive back, was it Snead that went down late in the game? That was a pretty bad concussion that he had. I know they didn't diagnose it at the time. They said he was in the protocol.
But he got more time to recover.
Right. He hit his head hard and sat there and shook his head for a while. How's that recovery going to look? Speaking of concussions, one of the interviews I had this past week, Chris Nowinski, he was a former WWE wrestler from graduate of Harvard that is now started as the CEO of the Concussion Legacy Foundation. And he and I had talked for quite a bit about the concussions last week to Mahomes and Jackson, and just how the NFL as a whole has been handling concussions. The NFL doesn't like him much because of all of the research that he does. But one of the interesting things that he told me that they are starting a program with broadcasters. So he said this is something that he worked with on Bob Costas, that Bob Costas came to him and said, it's bigger than the players going out there and saying, I had a concussion, I need to come out of the game. He goes, you need to have the announcers talking about it instead of the announcers sitting up there in the booth and saying, he's got cobwebs or he's got bell rung. The announcers need to be comfortable in talking about the fact that guy obviously has a concussion, and talk about the signs of seeing it and take it more seriously up there, because the fans are listening to the announcers. They're not talking to the players. There's a gray area
though about that, because announcers aren't trained medical professionals.
No, but you could tell, like yesterday with Snead, you could tell
he was not right. But I don't know how big of a ditch you can dig on something like that without varying into a medical opinion. Now, you can be taught, hey,
I think using the word, I think I mean, one of his things was just using the word concussion.
Yeah.
Is big for the announcers and something that they don't really like doing all that much.
Well, I think it opens up a big can of worms because you may have a guy say he's got a concussion. What if the medical staff says, no, we tested him and it really isn't a concussion. He was just more shaken up, wind knocked out of him. They can use any term. And that's where I think you got to be careful because we're going into an area now with regard to broadcasters and how they deal with certain situations. And I think TNT has got a problem on their hands because now these players don't want to talk to Shaq or Charles Barkley after games because of some of the things that they've said. So when you start having a broadcaster say that guy's got a concussion and players like, hey, you just put me in a protocol when I didn't have one.
Right.
And there are a lot of other things that ride with that from a gambling perspective and everything else. So while I think it's a good idea, I think we better think it all the way to the finish line with regard to what the impact it can have for the future.
Hey, so next week, I think we might have a little clearer picture too, but I think after this weekend, we're going to see a lot of quarterbacks moving around in the in the NFL. I don't know who it starts with, though, because we found out this weekend, which, by the way, we talked about the new head coach in Philadelphia. We didn't mention the new head coach in Detroit. I know we talked about it briefly last week, Dan Campbell of the of the Lions, but his first press conference talking about gnawing at the kneecaps, bite off the kneecaps of players, and shortly after that, it came out that Matt Stafford wants to be traded.
Can you blame him?
Is Matt Stafford good enough to where if he goes to a different team, an organization that already has some pieces in place, that he can lead them to maybe his first playoff win?
Yeah. He got a big arm. He's mastered some good comebacks in his career. He just hadn't had anybody to play with.
Calvin Johnson.
That's it. And that's the only time they were good. They never replaced Johnson. They never gave him a legitimate running back. The defense was always 4 players short. He just didn't. They did a bad job of drafting. I think he can. I think he can be a difference maker for a lot of teams. You look at
who would you rather have, Stafford or Deshaun Watson?
Watson,
because of his age or because of what he can do.
His age and his versatility. Now Stafford's not the easiest guy to bring down himself. They're different. They both have big arms. Don't let Watson's size fool you. He's got as big arms as anybody out here. I think you can win with both of them. I think they both bring something to the party. So when you have – how many teams are going to be looking for quarterback? Colts are going to be looking for one.
Oh, God, if we go around there, I mean, we could go –
I think Denver's going to be looking for one. As good as everybody thinks Drew Lock is, if you did a straw poll out in Denver, he might not have a job because they've seen enough of his inconsistency.
I mean, the Rams might be – you don't know what the future of Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger.
Philadelphia. Who else do we have? Well, we don't know about New Orleans. I mean, there's a team that – now, granted, Jameis Winston might have the biggest arm of anybody in the league. And while he played limited time in New Orleans, even Sean Payton glows about what they see they can do with him.
Mm-hmm.
So they may hold on to him.
And they still owe Taysom Hill a lot of money too.
So there's let's say 6, maybe 8 teams that might be looking for a quarterback. And there might be 6 or 8 quarterbacks out there. I mean, Stafford.
And you have Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields coming into the mix.
So there's going to be – I don't think we've ever seen it like this where we're going to have this many competent quarterbacks that are going to be looking for work.
And last year you had both Phillip Rivers and Tom Brady both on the move last year going to new homes. This year might be even more crazy than that. And that's 2 guys that are Tom Brady, definitely a Hall of Famer. Phillip Rivers, you'd imagine, is also a Hall of Famer too.
Really? You think so?
I mean, he's
not a first ballot guy, that's for sure.
It might take him a few years, but those numbers that he put up
Yeah, but you know what? That's an interesting point. Was he third all time somewhere? You know, Jim Hart was third all time leading passer when he retired. Never got in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Didn't win like Philip Rivers didn't win. So what's the difference? And this is where I have a problem with the Hall of Fame selection process, where you have to have somebody go in and speak up for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I commend Howard Balzer because he's done it for a long time and he's helped some guys get in the Hall of Fame. But what if I don't like Howard? Or what if I don't like the guy from this town? Or what if I didn't like the player because he was a jerk? I might put him down for that. Now, you're not supposed to.
Right.
But you know, like I do, that people sometimes don't vote in an objective manner. There's got to be a better way, which brings me to this. Have you seen the movement to try and have baseball ballots?
I was just going to bring that up, and I was going to bring it up before we move off the NFL stuff, though. The voters who usually will meet the Saturday before the Super Bowl and talk all day on Saturday, and then the big guy goes around and knocks on everyone's door that night. That was actually done over Zoom last week, so they already know. So Howard already spoke on behalf of Torrey Holt and gave his reasons why Torrey should be a Hall of Famer. It'll be hard for Torrey to make it in there, but he was in the conversation, so they already know who that is, and that's already sealed 2 weeks before it usually is. And so far, nobody has let the cat out of the bag.
No, I don't think they know. I don't. You know, they voted.
They voted.
They haven't shared the totals.
Somebody knows.
One guy may know, two guys, and that's the Hall of Fame. But the writers don't know.
Yeah. So the movement you're talking about with baseball's Hall of Fame is the fact that there are some voters that have reached out to baseball's Hall of Fame asking if they can take back their votes that they have given to Curt Schilling recently, which Curt Schilling's not going to have enough votes anyway.
It's going to be close
to get in.
It's going to be close.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't think he breaks 60%.
Well, he might not if they take the vote.
No, I think even before that, I just think there's enough people.
I thought he was kind of growing though. He's moved up the last few years. Personally speaking, I'd never vote for him because he's a terrible teammate. I know his numbers are impressive, and this is where we have to look at the definition of a Hall of Fame candidate. You know, from an ethics standpoint, and people could say, well, there's a lot of unethical guys in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, true. But none of them stood front and center like this clown.
I'm bringing up the voting right now for 2019. Curt Schilling in 2019 had 60.9% of the votes.
Okay.
In 2019, in 2020, Curt Schilling jumped up to 70% of the votes.
See what I mean?
In that, I haven't seen the any percent of the ballots that have been out there so far. But yeah, he did jump out. But yeah, because of many of the things that Curt Schilling's been involved in, people have writers, and that's you can't do that though. You either vote. I mean, unless the guy. I just feel like for the reasons that they and I don't like Curt Schilling either. I would not vote for him for the Hall of Fame either. But once that vote's out there, it's out there. I don't think you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. You could just wait till next year and pull your vote back on him next year.
Valid point, but I think that kind of gives people concern. They think he can get in this year.
Yeah. By the way, 51.2% in 2018. So he went from 51% to 60% to 70%.
Yeah, see, I got to tell you, I don't know who's going to get in this year. Because, normally you hear some overwhelming support for somebody, but I'm not hearing that. And I know there's a gentleman who kind of tracks all the votes that have come in. I don't know what has he indicated who's going to have a shot.
I'd have to find him on Twitter and find where he is. But I know who you're talking about. That the votes come in and they do. And he kind of posts them for that. So is that this week?
It's Monday. Next Monday.
Next Monday.
Yeah.
Is it the first?
Monday or Tuesday of next week.
Okay, I thought it was in January at some point.
Yeah, it is. Next week is January.
No, next Monday is February 1st.
Or is it tomorrow?
Is it tomorrow?
The 26th.
Okay, then yeah.
It's tomorrow. Folks, COVID will do this to you. So you truly lose track of time.
We are at Mungenast St. Louis Acura, 13720 Manchester Road in Manchester, Missouri. Hey, Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert, one of our sponsors here, and he wants to remind everyone to keep eating local, whether you are able to go dine in somewhere safely, or whether that is delivery or the curbside pickup. And also go online to eatlocalmeals.com. That's eatlocalmeals.com, and nominate your favorite local restaurant. In turn, Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert, will potentially pick one of those restaurants from the list, and they will buy meals for essential workers in your area. So that is eatlocalmeals.com. Another one of the great programs being put out by Ryan Kelly, the home loan experts. Website is thehomeloanexpert.com. As we start to wrap things up here, Vile Huso got his first start last night for the Blues. Didn't go well. They lost 6-3 to the Kings. The Blues have been struggling in those second games of the back-to-back games, as they are doing the 2-game stands with the new schedule the way it is. Your thoughts on what you've seen out of them now? Is this that's the third series, I guess? Third series the Blues have had.
Well,
fourth series the Blues have had.
I know some people talk about how did you let the Kings beat you on the back end after you beat them? They did the same thing with Colorado before they came to St. Louis. This team they're not playing with any urgency, plain and simple. There's not enough fire. And I'm not talking about being a bunch of banty roosters. They're not skating hard. They're not finishing checks. They seldom back check. It's just not a cohesive team. And it's almost like when the season starts in October or early November, you just kind of go through the motions. Christmas rolls around, you turn it. That's what they're doing. Can't do it that way this year. I mean, there's just too much at stake in such a short period of time in a very stacked conference. I don't know how you get everybody's attention. I mean, you don't have enough time to skate them because you're playing every other night, it seems like. So you have to be careful on that front. I don't know who you take in and who you take out of the lineup. I mean, it's a tough situation, but there's no urgency.
Right.
And they're not skating, and that's a concern. You thought they were going to gradually snap out of it after Saturday's game. But last night they laid an egg. Huso wasn't very good. He didn't get much help because, again, the forward's not coming back. They're not playing that heavy game. They're not leaning on people. They're not playing the body. They're not denying passes. They're not putting sticks in the lane. They're not doing the little things that made them an effective team. Not supporting the puck at all. Guys are running into each other too often. So there's a myriad of things that are wrong with this hockey team. How you fix it at this stage is a good question that I think we'd all like an answer to. But you don't have time to play with this because you're going to play so many games. And this week you got Vegas twice. Mm-hmm. Vegas could be the eye-opener for this team because if they start playing the body and knocking the Blues around, then we'll see who's made of what. And it's going to have to be somebody more than Kyle Clifford.
The also too the Billikens back in action tomorrow. First time since 35 days, close to that, since December 22nd, 23rd. Tomorrow they will be hosting Dayton, and that game will be available on CBS Sports. Are you and Ram going to get together? Be able to talk before then?
That's the general idea. I got a couple other people we're going to talk to, but Rammer is certainly on page one of the list of people to talk to.
If I mention Rammer, by the way, I got to bring up just quickly here, bring up that picture right there.
So there we are. And, that was Kiel Auditorium.
Is that new Pepsi game. Or is that Pepsi Clear? What was
1985 or 86?
Mm-hmm.
I think we were playing St. Joe. No, not St. Joseph.
Rammer be able to tell you.
It was Saint somebody from New York. He had a big forward, a really good player.
By the way, the Billikens got moved up to 22nd in the rankings. They have somehow jumped from not being ranked to 22nd in the rankings, and they haven't played in a month.
Rankings shouldn't even count this year. What does that say to teams who play every night and haven't been struck by COVID?
Right.
And they can't crack the top 25.
It's ridiculous.
I think that we should just throw rankings out. Rankings don't mean anything to me this year.
But speaking of what did you think of? Did you see the Coach K's post-game comments the other day, kind of belittling a student reporter there at Duke.
Was he? I thought he cut him some slack. Because you know what? He was composed.
This isn't
he kind of gave him but you know what? Here's the thing.
Is it because it was over Zoom and it was delayed? I mean, was there a little...
I think what he was trying to do is try to take into account that the student reporter probably was trying to ask a good question. It just didn't come across right. And he was just like, dude, we just want to try and process what just happened. I mean, you're coming at me with that kind of question. And you know what, to be honest with you, maybe I just barely looked at the stat sheet. I'd like to kind of take a deep breath. And this is where I think, we used to have this cooling off period where 15 minutes, 20 minutes, me and a coach and a player would come out. Well, with Zoom, you just plug it in and you start talking. And personally speaking, that we've gone through Zoom for a while, I hate it. I think it's the worst thing that's ever happened to our industry. Because I'm looking at a screen. I don't know who's on the other side, but if I'm looking,
they can't see anybody. And they're not seeing anything on their side either.
Here's my point. If you and I are having a conversation and we're in a press conference, then I can maybe read the body language and maybe see where you're trying to take a question compared to hearing it, and not really have a real sense of where we're headed with this.
Yeah.
I thought he cut him some slack. I've seen that not go well in the past, where a coach will light up a student reporter, and some of them deserve it, by the way. We had a guy in St. Louis that was covering the Cardinals who was an intern or whatever and wrote a story and got Matheny and Yachty sideways with each other because of a quote he put in that was never stated. You remember when Matheny said that Yachty was tired?
I'm sure you're gonna have to tell me off air who it was, because I'm trying to think back to it and I cannot remember.
You remember the situation, right?
I don't.
When Matheny said Yachty was tired and Yachty got upset about it, I'm not tired, and it was a big hoopla about it. Yachty didn't speak to him for a couple of days because he was pissed. That reporter took something that was never said. I was in the room when it was going on, and everybody else was. And Matheny confronted him about it later and peeled the paint off the wall over it because it created an issue. When you have young guys who assume, hey, just give me the facts. Don't give me your assumptions. Don't give me your opinion. Just give me the facts. And in those situations, coaches have to be guarded in understanding that how the question is framed is one thing. How the headline looks later is another thing. So I thought he did him. I didn't have a problem with it because he tried to put him. Well, let me ask you this question. If you just come out of a really hard test, and somebody would ask, what would your answer be? I thought that was very professional on his part. I didn't have a problem with it because I've seen other guys not be. Case in point, who's that Yahoo out at Oklahoma State?
Mike Gundy?
Yeah. That whole situation. You remember that? When
I'm a man, I'm 40.
Yeah, right. When he blew up at a student reporter in a similar situation. That didn't go over well. So I think I give Krzyzewski credit for trying to be credible.
Before we get out of here, one thing that I didn't expect to bring up, but you texted me about it, and then the news broke this morning. So NBC Sports Network or Sports Channel, whatever it was, is going away. Soon. Originally was Versus. Then went over to the NBC Sports Network.
The hunting channel. Remember we talked about that last week.
It's been a lot of different things. And I think the most I ever watched it was when they carried Dan Patrick back in the day. Now it's mostly just the highest ratings they get are for
the car shows.
That's when people are watching hockey, and then the car show comes on after it, and they forget to turn their TV off. And bars, the bars turn on their TV at 11 a.m. and there was a hockey game on the night before on that channel. So that's going away. They're going to move. And you know what? It was popular on Saturday and Sunday mornings during soccer season for the English Premier League. It was getting a lot of views for that. So that's going away. I would imagine when it comes to live sports, USA is going to get some of those sports, maybe especially maybe hockey on Wednesday nights. And the one thing that surprised me this morning, and this is where my angle comes into it, is that the WWE Network is going away, and that is also going to Peacock. So you're going to get a lot of hockey on the Peacock Network. Maybe because the NHL and NBC, their agreement's up after this year, and Fox might want to jump back in on that. But you're getting now some of those sports networks going away and moving to that. I wonder if it's only a matter of time before Fox Sports 1 might go that same route as well.
I think you're right. I think because of the dramatic drop in cable subscribers, the streaming is where the next revenue stream is coming from. And if you don't think so, watch and see who bids on the NFL Sunday Ticket. Like YouTube is going to bid on it.
Yeah.
There's some other streaming outlets that are going to bid on it because they're learning, people are cutting the cable and they're finding other ways to be entertained. Here's the big challenge for the NHL. And Major League Baseball is going to have this problem too. You better start finding multiple partners. See, the NHL made the mistake of solely being with NBC and the NBC Sports Network instead of trying to farm some of that out. And I know ESPN had kicked the tires on it before, and I'm sure they'll try and kick it again because I think they see a vision where this college sports thing is going to change here the next 3 to 5 years, where they're not going to be stuck with carrying the who knows what conference, because the Power 5 schools are all going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
They're going to step back from baseball a little bit. So they're trying
You think ESPN steps back from baseball a little bit?
I don't think there's any doubt. They're not making any money off of it. I don't think Fox is going to spend as much money on baseball as they have in the past. So that means Major League Baseball and other sports outlets are going to have to find new revenue streams, new partners. And I think you're going to see Facebook be re-engaged. You're going to see YouTube. You're going to see Hulu. You're going to see some other streaming services that we never would think of in that capacity that are going to pick up the slack. And then they're going to be solely specific for that sports fan. Because the networks aren't making enough money off of this to justify throwing more money into it. When you look at baseball, if it wasn't for the local TV deals, who knows where they'd be?
Yeah, the money that is being, you talked about the money that's going to be thrown around for something like Sunday Ticket, and the money that Thursday Night Football has brought in for the NFL is unreal. And then the story, I don't know if you read the story this morning about the WWE Network and Peacock, that Vince McMahon in the past 18 months, I think, has signed a $1 billion deal with NBC, a $1 billion deal with Fox, and now another $1 billion deal with Peacock to move.
Well, now he doesn't have to worry about the football league anymore. He's got time on his hands.
He hasn't had that foot. He doesn't need the football. He hasn't had the football league.
I mean,
that's all. But now, he whatever money or whatever deal he struck with The Rock to get that off his hands. But that is $3 billion deals that the man has signed. That's not bad.
Did you see the McGregor fight? You didn't see it either.
I just watched the highlights. I'm an old man. I think I was in bed by 9:30.
Okay. I thought that was right up your alley.
You know what? And that's the thing. I have an interest in McGregor fights. I can't stay up till I'm not going to stay up till midnight and find a website to stream it on and
if it's
watch
not on
it.
my remote control, it's probably not going to be watched.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Same thing with like a Mayweather fight. Like I'm not staying up till midnight to watch a Mayweather fight, to watch him dance around a ring for 10 rounds.
I don't know who I would watch anymore. That's a good point you made.
If Brock Lesnar goes back in the octagon, I'll watch him, but I don't think he's in any shape to actually fight MMA.
Yeah, I mean that element, that era, and I know somebody's watching it because they keep putting them on.
Absolutely.
But I don't know if we have the zest and the interest like we once did for a pay-per-view where it was a big watch party or whatever. I think COVID's had something to do with that. But I think overall we just don't have that star power participant that you say, like him or not, I'm going to watch him. I want to watch him get his brains knocked in, or I want to watch him knock the poo out of somebody, but I want to watch. I don't know if that person exists. And, ESPN had a little stake in the McGregor thing. I think McGregor's yesterday's news anyway. But for some reason, they thought, well, we'll get a buzz. And then they had the technical problem.
I saw that.
Just went ape wire. So
our buddy Clarence Gaines watching today. And that, hey, you know what? If there's a time I can get 7 hours of sleep instead of my usual 5, I'm jumping all over it. So that's
all right, so Clarence is talking about CBS Sports.
Oh, you're talking about this one too. I'll bring that up. Yeah.
Now, his dad, one of the great coaches in college
Mhm.
basketball, Clarence Big House Gaines Sr., who coached Earl Monroe,
Yeah.
Earl of Pearl, Hall of Famer. But also had the dubious distinction of having Stephen A. Smith on his team. I'll just let it go at that. He was on the team. But anyway,
I didn't know Stephen A. Smith played college sports.
I just said he was on the team. I didn't say he played.
Oh, I didn't know he participated. I didn't know.
I just said he was on the team.
I figured. I always thought. I guess I was under the impression that
he was just a guy.
that Skip Bayless had a bigger playing, had more playing days, a better playing career than Stephen A. Smith.
He was on the team.
Okay,
that's all I can say about it.
Okay,
but anyway, it's a great documentary on CBS Sports Network that I would suggest people take a look at. Clarence Gaines Sr. was so instrumental in the game, in touching people, but he was a hell of a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he you don't back into over 800 victories by mistake. I mean, he good coach, and I would suggest people check it out. It's going to be February 9th, so we'll have some opportunities to remind everybody about it, but I'm looking forward to it.
Any big interviews coming up this week on your end? I know you already talked to, or you're going to talk to Alex Ferrario today. Yeah. What else you got?
I'm going to do Chris Kerber later in the week.
Okay.
And also we will visit with Judge Annette Eckert. For our friends over in Illinois who may know that name, she's involved with a great program, Teen Court, that we will talk with her about. And somebody else I'm talking to this week. I got my list. I just don't have it with me. But I can guarantee we'll have some interesting people on. We got to get – when are we doing something with Jay?
Jay has an interview, I think, coming up tomorrow morning. He's going to have another interview posted tomorrow morning up on the
Adam Betts'
up on the
big
website.
Deal was today, right? His family golf opening was today.
That you have to go back. I know that's in the archives on our YouTube channel. Go to claibsonline.com or go to YouTube and search for Claibs Online, and you can see all of Jay's interviews, the video interviews that Jay Randolph Jr. does there. Jay texted me this morning. He's got another one that's coming out tomorrow, so I know we have that. And so we have a lot of stuff coming up, and I believe I'm going to be reaching out to people to talk more about this streaming stuff later on. I'm going to have that coming up on this weekend's show.
Tony Hubert poses a great question: how do leagues share streaming revenue when it comes clear that just a handful of teams or markets are driving the viewership? And that's a great point. But here's the thing: revenue sharing works. And if you don't think so, what other league has a $24 billion TV contract other than the NBA for that very reason? Now, granted, where they get their viewers from, we're looking at China and the Far East and Europe and places of that nature, not as much in the U.S., but that's where you want to be a worldly brand. And that's something that baseball has missed out on. The NBA has picked up on it. The NFL tried. They failed miserably. And you have the NHL that's trying to be more global because half the league is from somewhere else. So it's a very good question, and I think we're still trying to figure out where the answer is going to be because we have too many teams in baseball that are living solely off the TV money and not making an investment in being competitive. And if you don't think so, just look at the National League Central.
Yeah, we didn't have time to get into that today, but more players leaving the National League Central this week. Still nobody coming in. I think I saw the biggest signing this year was the Cubs signed someone for $1.5 million. And that's been the biggest acquisition made in the NL Central so far this year. Hey, we have been bringing this show to you from Mungenast St. Louis Acura, 13720 Manchester Road in Manchester is where you can find them. And hey, on a day like this, if you don't want to get out and come here to Mungenast St. Louis Acura, they can bring the car to you. You give them a call or find them online at stlouisacura.com. They will bring you the car. They will do test drives at your home. All of the convenience right there for you, the folks here at Mungenast St. Louis Acura. We will be at Mungenast Alton Toyota next Monday at noon. We'll see our buddy Jamie out there before you hit the road and head down to Florida. So for Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. You have been watching Lunch with Claibs and Joe here from Mungenast St. Louis Acura, powered by Ameren, Illinois, and also sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. Find more content over at claibsonline.com. Until next week, goodbye.